noodles. Oh my goodness, I could make an entire channel just on noodle recipes. I love noodles so much, and you guys do too, because some of my most popular videos on my channel are noodle recipes. So I thought I would put together like my ultimate list of noodle videos for your viewing pleasure. First up, we have my Kung Pao chicken noodles, Thai chicken and ginger noodles, 10-minute spicy prawn drunken noodles, Mongolian beef noodles, 15-minute Shanghai noodles. I mean, who doesn't want noodles in 15 minutes? And then finally, my Hoisin beef noodles. Don't miss out on my special tip for stir frying minced meat in that one. Happy cooking, my friends. Check out those noodles. They kind of look all dark and mysterious, and you betcha they are spicy. These are my Kung Pao chicken noodles. I am such a big Kung Pao chicken fan, but for me it's got to have all the right things. Like, it has to have the really spicy element, the Szechuan peppercorns, all the right, aromas and fragrances. So we're going to make the right kind of Kung Pao chicken, throw in some noodles, and it's going to be good. I promise. So we're going to start with the marinade first of all. I'm going to do some soy sauce, some Hoisin cooking wine, a little bit of honey. Just give that a whisk, that honey to dissolve in there. And in goes my chicken. And here we're starting with layering the flavors here. We've got the salty, we've got the fragrant like Hoisin wine, but we also need a stir fry sauce. And this one's really important to get right, I think, for like a really good Kung Pao. So I need soy sauce here again, and just a little dash of dark soy sauce, really just to give us that, dark and mysterious, lovely kind of color. And then here's the really secret ingredient that I think a lot of Kung Pao recipes miss out on, and that is vinegar. You don't want it to be just sweet and salty. You want that little bit of a tang to the sauce as well. And now some sugar and some corn flour to thicken everything up. And just give that a mix. Now with my spring onions here, I like to slice up the pale part of the spring onion. And this part of the spring onion has more of that onion flavor. So I like to treat it like an onion and stir fry it first. And then you have your green part here, and that becomes more of our garnish at the end. So I'm going to cut those into battens. And now let's get in here in the wok. Key here is to get your wok really nice and hot. Throw in some oil. And now the chilies. So for me, like, a Kung Pao is all about the spicy and the tingling, right? The spicy comes from the chilies, the tingling comes from the Szechuan peppercorns. So I'm gonna put in a whole lot of chili here. That's just me though. You could turn it down a little if you want. And I like to do this kind of rough. I want some small pieces, some larger pieces. Small pieces you're gonna kind of chew into and get that pop of spice, and the larger ones are just kind of gonna flavor the oil and the sauce a little bit. Now add in the white part of your spring onion first. As I said, that's sort of more like your onion flavor. And then we want garlic, ginger, and Szechuan peppercorns. So things are smelling great in here now. We're gonna go in with the chicken. And you've got quite a bit of sauce in here. Now that's intentional, because what I wanna do is stir fry this until that liquid evaporates and really kind of clings to the chicken. And that way we're getting a really intensified kind of flavor. So give this a few minutes, toss it around every so often. So now you can see that most of that liquid has evaporated. So if I pull that apart there, we've just got the chicken and the aromatics. That's looking really good. So now it's time to get my noodles going. So I'm just gonna use some of these packaged noodles. They're pre-cooked, so they just need a little bit of softening in the water so they break apart. All right. And the trick here is to cook the noodles just until they break apart, because otherwise they'll overcook and get all soggy in the pan. Okay, so these are looking pretty good. I'm just gonna sort of drain and toss them straight into my chicken. Now add your stir fry sauce, and then just toss all of this together until the sauce becomes lovely and thick, and each of those strands of noodles is lusciously coated. Put my spring onion in there. So now we can just serve these up. The last thing is just some roasted peanuts. And there you go, friends, Kung Pao chicken noodles. All right, let's get in here and try this. It is such a big explosion of flavor. I mean, it's spicy like up front, and it's kind of tingling, and you're getting all that saltiness and all the good things. Slight tang from the vinegar. So good. Yum.
Chewy chicken savory noodles. These noodles so easy to make, and the flavor out of this world crazy good. These are my chicken and ginger noodles. So often when you're doing really quick noodles at home, it's all about just like chucking in whatever you've got in the bottom of the fridge, and it kind of all ends up as one big kind of mess of different vegetables and, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, I think this dish really speaks to how a very simple concentration of flavors can make something really beautiful. So what I'm talking about here is we're going to concentrate on how we get the best kind of most beautiful ginger flavor, and then just complementing that with some, you know, mushroom flavor and a very elegant kind of noodle sauce. So there you go. This is a very elegant but easy noodle dish for you guys. We're going to start off with the chicken first of all, and I've got some chicken thigh here. I'm going to add some dark sweet soy sauce. I love the color that this soy sauce brings to this dish. And then a little smattering of some ground white pepper. So it's kind of like these little touches that really will make your noodles extra special. The white pepper, the dark soy sauce. And now our stir fry sauce is uber simple. Oyster sauce and some fish sauce and a little dash of sugar. That sugar will help to round out the kind of salty savoriness. And now let's talk about mushrooms. So I am going to be using two types of Asian mushrooms. I've got some shiitake mushrooms and some wood ear mushrooms here. So I'm going to grab hold of my shiitakes first of all. And I'm here in Thailand, so it's really easy for me to get beautiful fresh Asian mushrooms. But the great news with these two is that you can find them dried as well, both of them from a Chinese supermarket or online. They're really great to kind of have the dried version in your pantry because you can just keep them indefinitely and they're always there. Okay, so shiitakes first. I'm going to take the stem off because the stem is always kind of tough and chewy. And just slice those. And now the wood ear mushrooms. So these guys kind of look a little odd. In fact, actually in Thai, the literal translation for the name of these is rat ear mushrooms, because you can see they kind of look like, you know, little rat's ears. The way to prepare them is to just take off the kind of, I don't know, that kind of little bubbly bit from the back of the mushroom. And these are great. They're really crunchy, so they actually add a really great texture as well as a really beautiful color as well. Now, if you can't get a hold of either of these mushrooms, the shiitakes or these wood ear ones, go ahead and use, you know, some button mushrooms, some portobello mushrooms. It's totally fine as well. All right, let's talk about ginger. Now, not all ginger is created equal. Let's have a look here. I've got one piece here which is quite pale, you can see, and another one here which has darker skin. The skin's a lot firmer. Now, they're both fine to use, but if you want a really fresh, lovely, light ginger flavor, try and find one that looks a little younger, like this one, a bit paler. That's going to give you the best ginger flavor for your stir fry here. Now, because this is quite a young piece of ginger, it's going to be really easy to peel. And in fact, I'm not even going to bother peeling all the skin off because the skin is so fine and thin. If you had an older piece of ginger, I would definitely recommend peeling all of the skin off. And for this one, I just want some really nice fine strips of ginger. So now we're ready to get everything going in our wok. Want some oil, some garlic, some onion, and now my chicken. Make sure you spread that chicken out. You really want to make sure you're getting as much heat contact with the chicken as possible so that it sears nicely instead of just kind of stewing. You just want to keep stir frying this until that chicken is just cooked through. Okay, time to get the ginger and the mushrooms in there. And the reason I'm adding the ginger in here and not at the beginning is that I want to keep that really fresh, punchy ginger flavor. I don't want it to sear too much. So there is method to the madness, everyone. I'm just going to toss this through for, half a minute or so. Oh, I just love that color already. It's so, like autumnal and beautiful and comforting. That ginger smell is amazing. Okay, at this point I'm going to turn this off and concentrate on getting my noodles cooked perfectly. All right, so I've got some boiling water, and these are just good old dried rice stick noodles. They go in, and you really want to keep an eye on these because the worst thing for a noodle stir fry is to start out with soggy noodles. You'll just end up with a huge mess in your wok, which is not what you want. Now, just as soon as these are tender, and these have taken literally like 2 minutes, drain them off and turn that heat back underneath your stir fry and get those noodles in there. I'm going to add in that stir fry sauce we made earlier, toss everything together. And see how those noodles are just beautifully chewy and separate and glossy and not sticky and soggy. And add in my spring onion. Oh, and just look at how that looks in the pan. I love those colors, the pop of green as well. And let's get those steaming noodles out onto a plate. So there you go, my friends. A very restrained stir-fried noodle dish in terms of the ingredients, but the flavor really does pack a punch. All right, let's try it out, shall we? That ginger flavor is so beautifully intense and fresh. This is the kind of noodle stir fry dish that, really tastes so special but is so easy to make. Yum. You gotta try it. It's as simple as that.
Hot, spicy, loaded with fresh herbs. I mean, this is the street food classic you need to know how to make. This is my version of Thailand's pad ki mao. Pad ki mao literally translates as drunken stir fry. But I don't know, the drunken part, whatever. The really important part about this dish is it's so freaking good. It's like super spicy, has this really great herbal element, which we'll get to at the end. But first of all, we need to make a garlic chili paste. Now, check out these chilies, please, guys. We have some really epic ones here today. So these kind of little fiery ones here, the red and the green. In Thailand, we call these prikinu, and that literally translates as rat poo chilies. So not really the nicest name, but they have the best flavor. They're amazing. Look, whatever really spicy chilies you can get in your area, totally cool to use. Even bird's eye chilies would be great as well. But I happen to have these really nice, lovely Thai ones. Okay, now what you want to do is just take the stems off here. Now, obviously, you guys know me, so I like things really fiery, so please don't try this at home unless you also like things really fiery. Obviously use less chilies if you would like. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here is use some of these large red chilies because I kind of want lots of lovely red pops of color, but also I don't want to really go overboard. So these ones are more for the color rather than the spicy. And the other thing here is I want to keep things quite chunky. I want to kind of bite into some bits of chili here, so I'm just roughly chopping those.
Now I also need some garlic. Now a good pinch of salt here. Not just for flavor, but because the salt acts, you know, sort of as an abrasive kind of thing here to help pound everything and grind it down a bit. Now just give this a light kind of pounding. And now you can see a lot of that garlic skin has sort of come loose. So you can just pick out kind of like the larger chunks of the garlic skin. I don't mind if there's some left in there. And now you want to go in and really kind of bruise these ingredients up. Okay, so this is the kind of situation we're after here. It doesn't need to be all fine dining. I want it nice and chunky. And this is the point where you start to get a bit of, you know, a bit of a clear out happening. You're not doing this dish right unless you have a coughing fit at some point. That's the theory. Okay, next up, let's talk about noodles. So traditionally in Thailand, you would have fresh rice noodles for these. So I'm really lucky that I was able to find some fresh rice noodles today. They look like this. Typically you'll find these in the fridge section at an Asian supermarket. If you can't get a hold of these guys, don't worry, just use some rice stick noodles. If you can get the thicker ones, that would be great, but even just the pad thai ones is totally good as well. Don't miss out on this dish because you can't get the fresh rice noodles. Oh wait, actually I've got a video on how you can make fresh rice noodles too on my channel, so there you go. Now I took these guys out of my fridge like an hour ago, so they're a nice, you know, sort of room temperature. If your noodles are really cold, they are going to break apart really easily. So just pop them in the microwave for like 10 seconds and then they will easily sort of unfold like this. Now these are the big large sheets. You can usually find them already sliced. That's fine to use as well. I like quite sort of like wide, chunky noodle pieces. So I'm going in like that. And at this point, if your noodles are warm, you kind of give them a bit of a rub. Sort of like, you know, when you're like trying to open up a plastic, you know, when you're trying to open a plastic bag and you just kind of give it a rub to try and, you know, loosen it up a bit. It's a bit like that, I suppose. And then just gently, just separate them out. And you want to do this before you start stir frying. I mean, if you just went in and threw these into the wok, it'd be one big clumpy mess. So you want to sort of just get them nice, separated. Okay, so you've got your lovely plate of noodles here. If you are using the dried version of the noodle, just cook those and rinse them so they're nice and cool. Just have them sitting there. Last thing we want to do before we get stir frying is just do some greens. So I'm going to grab a hold of, I've got Hoisin, but you could use bok choy or pak choy. So, you know, the story is that like a drunk guy came home and cooked these noodles. Well, one of the stories, but he must have been quite, you know, forward thinking or healthy, or, you know, he put some greens in there. Who knows? I don't know. Okay, so now we can get stir frying. So I want you to get your wok nice and hot. Now you just need a little bit of oil to start with. Now here's where you should like kind of just hold your breath, open the windows, doors. This is about to get quite spicy here. Pop in your chili garlic paste. You know, I love that smell. I mean, that smell to me is pure heaven, except for when it kind of gets stuck, but no, we're all good. Now I'm gonna throw in my prawns. Now you can do chicken, pork, whatever you like here. I just happen to have prawns today. Give those prawns a little bit of time here to kind of soak up that chili and just cook through a little. Now you want to throw in your green vegetables. Oh, I love all those colors already. The red, the green, the prawns, oh, so good. So now you want to go in with your noodles. And then here are the sauces. So you need some oyster sauce, some dark soy sauce. You could use a dark sweet soy sauce, which is slightly thicker, or just a regular Chinese dark soy sauce, just for a little bit of beautiful color here. And of course, because this is a Thai noodle dish that we're making, we need some fish sauce. Now toss that all around. And those noodles, even if you're using, you know, dry noodles and they're a little bit sort of stuck, because that's what happens when they sit around for a little bit, at this point, the sauce and everything will start to, you know, soften everything up and Look at that shiny lusciousness going on here. Okay, one final, not really secret ingredient, but like really essential ingredient here are the herbs. So in Thailand, I would use what's called bai krapao. We also call that holy basil or spicy basil. It kind of has a really spicy flavor, hence it's called spicy basil. I find it very difficult to get in Australia. So I'm just gonna go in with some of these Thai basil leaves. You can see Thai basil has like that sort of purpley flower situation going on. You can even use Italian basil here, guys. What I want is a nice big hit of fresh herbs at the end. So I'm gonna go in with my Thai basil. Now, quick toss here. And we are done. Now get those steaming noodles out onto a plate. One final little basil embellishment here at the end. And there you go, friends. Thai drunken noodles, pad ki mao, whatever you want to call them. You don't have to be drunk. The guy that made them supposedly was drunk, I don't know, or hungover, not sure. The interesting thing here is, let's get in here and eat some. I love how, I mean, this dish is like a full-on punch in the face. That chili and the garlic, but then you get like that beautiful saltiness and the chewy noodles and then that beautiful fresh, you know, herb basil at the end. That takes me right back to the streets of Thailand. Oh, love, love, love. Yum. Gorgeously rich, glossy, sticky beef. This is one noodle stir fry dish you guys are gonna love with all my little tips for getting the most tender beef. This is my Mongolian beef noodles. Now, I love beef noodles just as much as the next person, but do you know what I don't like? I don't like beef noodles where the beef is all dry and tough and not very appetizing. So there's a couple of little tricks that you can do at home to make your beef noodles super special and super tender. So let's get on to that part first of all. The first thing is that I'm using a tender cut of steak here. So this is a sirloin and I've got it sliced really nice and thin. The thin part is really important, guys, because we want the beef to cook really quickly and get brown really quickly in our wok or our frying pan so that it doesn't stew and become tough. So first up, that's the beef chit chat. And now for some flavor, we want some soy sauce. And then here come the little secret ingredients that are going to make our beef really nice and tender and keep it tender when we're cooking it. First of all, baking soda. So this guy is going to help our beef brown a lot quicker in the frying pan and also kind of tenderize the beef strips a little bit as well. And then I've got some corn flour as well. So that's my other little secret ingredient. And the corn flour, well, that guy kind of gives us a really beautiful kind of silky coating on the outside of the beef that kind of protects it and makes it seem more juicy and tender when you're eating it. So there you go, couple of little tricks there. Now also for more flavor, I want some Chinese cooking wine. And look, if you guys want to keep your cooking alcohol free, you could just use a little bit of apple juice here would be great. And just give all of that a really good mix. Now, this little mixture here does not need long to work its magic, just a couple of minutes while you get the rest of your stir fry stuff organized. So the next thing we're going to do is our stir fry sauce. So what we need here is very simply some soy sauce, some oyster sauce, a little bit of brown sugar. I like to use the brown sugar here because it has more of a kind of deeper molasses kind of flavor, adds, you know, a little bit more extra special to the stir fry, but you could use white sugar as well if that's all you've got. A little bit of Hoisin cooking wine here as well, and some chicken stock. Now just give that a mix, and we are ready to get stir frying. I just need some oil into a hot pan or a hot wok. Make sure you give yourself a lot of room here. So like a big pan if you're not using a wok or a large wok. That way, when we get our beef in, we can really spread it out. Okay, I'm gonna go in with my onions first. And just toss those around a little, just give them a little bit of color. And now in with my beef. Now with that beef, you want to get it spread out straight away. So by spreading the beef out, we're getting it nice and seared and crusty on the outside rather than being all clumped up and stewing and getting tough. So there's a whole, method to the madness here, everyone. So just let that beef sear for a minute or so on that first side, and then get in there and flip that beef over. And now that I'm starting to get some color, now I'm gonna add in my aromatics. So I'm gonna go in with my garlic and some ginger. And doing it this way means that we're not allowing our garlic to burn or the ginger to burn while we're getting that hard sear on the beef. So it's really important to, go in the right order here. Now, just let those guys make friends in there as you're flipping everything over. Oh, that smell, garlic, onion, ginger, the holy trinity of Asian ingredients all together always makes me so happy. Now, we need our noodles. So these noodles are pre-cooked, they're ready to stir fry. I'm just gonna toss them in, and then in with our stir fry sauce. Now, you just need everything in here to kind of get acquainted. You want that sauce to kind of thicken up a little bit, get nice and glossy. And then just toss through your spring onions. And look at that beautiful little bit of magic that we've created in there, that glossy sauce, that beautiful beef, which is looking nice and tender and glossy and yummy. Too many glossies. Anyway, you get what I mean. It's looking really magic. I'm gonna get this right out onto a serving plate. Now just a little bit of extra greenery on top, some spring onion. And there you go, guys. One very simple but very technically perfect beef noodle stir fry. And by technically perfect, I mean that beef should be super tender. Should we have a look? Let's see. Sometimes it's just the very simple things done very well, which brings so much joy. That beef is melt in your mouth tender. Each little strand of noodle is beautifully coated. The sauce is perfect consistency. Everything just bringing joy. Savory, chewy, porky noodles, and everything cooked in 15 minutes. These are my weeknight Shanghai noodles. So I've eaten these noodles in Chinese restaurants in Hong Kong. I love them, and it's awesome because they only take like 15 minutes to make at home. Amazing. I'm gonna use some pork today. I really like using what's called pork scotch fillets. These have a little bit of fat that run through them, so they stay a little bit more juicy and moist in the pan. But you could also use tenderloin, pork fillet, even pork belly is good. The main thing here is that you wanna slice it really thin. So if you have a look here, this is how thin we're getting our pork slices here. Two things, when we go to marinate this pork, we're gonna have lots of surface area for that marinade and that salty, savory flavor to seep into the pork. And two, it's gonna cook really quickly in the pan, stay nice and juicy. Okay, so just get my pork into a bowl. And now the marinade, just some soy sauce, sesame oil, a little dash of sugar, and some corn flour. Now just make sure you mix that through really well. And that corn flour is going to help thicken up the sauce and give us like a kind of silky, tender coating on the outside of the pork. So now let's do the stir fry sauce. Really easy. Some oyster sauce, soy sauce, just regular light soy sauce, and some dark soy sauce. That's gonna give us some color. And then a little dash of sugar. Let's give that a mix. So now let's talk about noodles. And traditionally you would use Shanghai style wheat noodles, but these Japanese udon are a really good substitute and they're way more widely available. The important thing with these is that you need to soak them in some boiling water just quickly. Just to separate them.
So the thing with these udon noodles I find is that they're very prone to breaking apart. So you want to be really gentle, just use your tongs to kind of shake them, persuade them to gently come apart. And now just as soon as they become loose, you want to get them out of that hot water because of course your enemy for any kind of noodle stir fry is an overcooked noodle before you start even the cooking. Now I'm going to cook these straight away, so I'm happy to just leave them in this bowl, but if I was going to leave them for a little while, I would definitely run them under some cold water, toss them with a little bit of oil, and that way you won't get noodles that are stuck together. Now the stir frying in the wok happens really quickly, so make sure you've got all your ingredients ready to go. I've got some garlic, some shiitake mushrooms, cabbage, and a little bit of Asian greens here. I'm using Hoisin. Okay, so oil into my hot pan. In goes the garlic. And then I'm gonna go straight in with that pork. Make sure you spread that pork right out. I really want as much of that heat in the wok coming into contact with each piece of pork. And that way we're stir frying and not allowing the meat to sort of sit around and stew. This is a really simple stir fry, simple flavors. So each little part of this cooking process or stir frying process is really important. Get good color on the pork first of all. Okay, now I'm going to add in my mushrooms. I'm using fresh shiitakes today, but if you've got some dried, they're great to have in the pantry because you can just soak them and then slice them up and add them. Okay, now my cabbage, I'm using wombot cabbage or naka cabbage. Okay, and now the Hoisin. Now my noodles. And our stir fry sauce. Now you just want to keep tossing these noodles until we get a beautiful even color and that sauce thickens up a little. Okay, so this is looking really good. This shouldn't be a really wet kind of noodle stir fry. All of those noodles should soak up the flavor and the sauce so that you're left with a fairly dry kind of noodle dish but with loads of flavor. All that's left to do is just pile these up on a plate. And of course I better taste these and let you guys know what you're missing out on. Those chewy noodles, the texture, so good.
Sweet, beefy noodles. This one looks really simple, but I've got a few little techniques up my sleeve that make this noodle dish even more amazing. These are my Hoisin beef noodles. All right, so I have a problem, well, I used to have a problem with beef noodles. Whenever I use beef mince for my noodles, I found that they got a little watery, they were kind of gray, and just not altogether really special. So I decided, how can I make my beef noodles more beefy? Well, this is the solution. Really simple, but works so well. So first we're gonna start with the beef in the wok. And what I wanna do here is really kind of char the beef and evaporate any of the juices. You'll see what I mean. Let's get going. I want a little bit of oil in here Doesn't matter whether you're doing this in a wok or a pan, the technique is still the same. Now make sure this is like sizzling hot. I want to hear that beef as soon as it hits the pan. Now, one word on the beef. I do like beef with a little bit of fat, and I think it actually works better with flavor and texture. So my beef is a little fatty. You want to see the smoke, hear the sizzle. It should be really dramatic. Spread the beef out and then do your best not to touch it. I just said that and then I touched it, but just listen, don't do what I'm doing, just listen and do what I'm saying. Let the beef sit there, and we're going to notice, and I'm starting to see it already, some of that liquid juiciness coming out, and it looks quite wet. So what I want to do is wait until that liquid evaporates, and that's when we're going to start to get the nice chariness on our beef. Trust me. Trying to touch it. It's really hard not to touch things. I'm going to put the spatula down. Not touch it. So when everything starts to smell kind of like a seared hamburger, take a look in the pan and you can see almost all of that liquid is gone. It's quite dry, and I can see some lovely little brown bits starting to happen there. So the magic is happening. I'm just going to restrain myself a little bit longer. Just wait for just a little more chariness. Okay, now get in there and see how we've got some color there. I mean, it won't all be uniformly brown, but those brown charry bits will add so much more flavor and beefiness to the rest of our noodle stir fry. So now I'm going to go in with some onions. And the key here is not to dump everything in here at once. So I want to give my onions some time. Now, onions are just a little soft, starting to char a little bit, so I'm going to add some garlic. So we're kind of doing things a little bit backward, because I would usually add garlic, onion into the oil, and then my protein. Okay, toss that garlic through, and I don't want the garlic to burn, so I'm just going to give that a couple of tosses. And now in with some napa cabbage that I've got here, also known as Chinese cabbage or wombok, depending on where you are. I know, in Australia we have weird names for things. Wombok is such a weird name, but wombok is what we call it in Australia. So there's some information that you might not have known. Toss that around. All right, so now my shredded cabbage. Well, I just added shredded cabbage. So now my shredded carrot. And at this point, you should be looking at a stir fry that is beautifully dry, so not watery. I can smell the beautiful like charry beef, and my cabbage and carrot are still a little tender, but my onion is nice and soft and sweet. So we've kind of got all these contrasting textures and flavors and everything already. And we're just going to pause there, turn the heat off. Let's do some noodle work. Now I've got some beautiful fresh Chinese egg noodles here. You could use some prepackaged ramen noodles if you've got them, or even thicker noodles like Hokkien noodles, that's fine as well. The key here is that I don't want to overcook the noodles here, because I want them to cook further in the pan and soak up all that sauce that we're going to add later. So just some boiling water, in the noodles go. And after just a few seconds, I'm going to take the pan straight off over to my wok, turn that beef back on, and get the noodles straight in. And now for all the saucy stuff. I'm going to add in some oyster sauce, some Hoisin sauce, some dark sweet soy sauce. This is for a little bit of color. You could just use regular Chinese dark soy sauce as well. It doesn't have to be the sweet kind. And then my little secret ingredient here is a dash of white vinegar, just to cut through the sweetness and add a little bit of kind of lift to the whole flavor. And now toss everything together. A little bit of greenery here. I want some spring onion. Okay, now that is looking really amazing. I love that. And see, we're all concentrated in here because we got rid of all the liquid from the beef. So that sauce is really tasty, really concentrated, sticking to every strand of noodle, every little morsel of beef. Now a little bit more spring onion here, a little sprinkling of sesame seeds. Ooh, and that is one good looking plate of noodles. And of course, I'm going to try it just, you know, to be either just cruel to you guys or just to let you know that, you know, they are really good. You know what hits you straight away is that kind of charry, intense sweetness of the sauce. And then you get the really beefy flavor coming through. Yum. Beef noodles that actually taste beefy. Love it. I hope you guys love this one too. Yum. Lucky I made a huge plate.